Hello and welcome to another episode of 28 Days of Blackness. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Bruce Alston here, and he's here to talk about Black Wall Street. Bruce, we're going to get right into it. So, I just wanted to ask you just a little bit of information. How did this start, Black Wall Street?
Black Wall Street started basically, there was a migration, right? Right around the late 1800s where blacks migrated to the Midwest, really Oklahoma, different areas around there, and they found it that they could actually build wealth and build prosperity as far as get land, start their own businesses and everything. So it really was a migration from the South into, like, I would say, like into the Midwest, really. And that's what really started this whole Black Wall Street, that they were able to birth a Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
That is amazing. Now, when you say migration, and we're talking about black people here, most migrations are forced migrations. Were they fleeing anything? Like, I know there was a lot of lynching in the South and things.
Yes, there was a lot of lynching in the South. A lot of them felt the need that they could, that there was access to land, cheap land, right, in the Midwest, right, and they felt as though it was open. It was really open land, right. So of course they were fleeing the segregation laws of the South and everything, and trying to start over, even though they dealt with some of their own in the Midwest eventually anyway. But that is essentially what they were doing. They were fleeing, and a lot of as we go on and we talk about this, we'll see a lot of these African Americans were Native Americans, okay, that took up in Oklahoma, right? So they're not necessarily they were here. They were from native. They were natives.
And that's amazing. And, we understand that we've always had a shared history when it comes to natives. When we talk about the Seminoles, that's another example of that as well. So that is awesome. Now, we understand, and we've seen it during certain eras. We're seeing it with the boycott on currently right now in this climate with Gucci. And what we're seeing, what we've seen with the, the buses in Alabama. How important is it to keep black wealth within the community?
Well, the funny thing you just said, it's very important, because this is the amazing thing, right? Is that I stopped today in a restaurant on Danford Avenue, right? Jubilee, right? Jubilee is a Filipino restaurant, right? And it is supported entirely by the Filipino community, okay? Then when you take a look outside, right, you go within our community, right, is that you'll see, if you go downtown, we frequent everywhere. Our dollars spend with every ethnic group, every neighborhood. Now, what I say to people is this, though. When's the last time you've seen different nationalities and stuff going in and supporting our businesses in our areas, okay? Classic example, Barchet's is opening back up, okay? And you have the Steak and Take down here on Monticello Avenue, right? I guarantee they'll tell you 99% of their business is African American. Other communities, other ethnic groups are not coming into these areas and spending their money. So what we do is, by funneling our money out, we empower the local economies of these other communities, and it does nothing to support our own, which we are not able to provide employment opportunities or anything for it, or even cycle money within our community.
And that's, isn't that kind of like the great allure of the whole Black Wall Street, that we're talking about in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Well, what happened was the great boom in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the way this, it was a section called, similar to Martin Luther King Drive, called Greenwood Avenue. Okay, Greenwood Avenue was a mecca for African American businesses. When I say a mecca, it had multiple theaters, right? Multiple banks, right? Everything built, operated, owned by African Americans. The crazy thing about it is, Tulsa was basically segregated, okay? So you had a black area and you had a white area. The crazy thing about this is the black area was more affluent than the white area. That's why we'll see later on how the destruction of Greenwood Avenue, basically Black Wall Street, what happened.
And wow, that is definitely, very interesting to know. A fact that I've researched was that the dollar actually circulated 300 times in Tulsa, Oklahoma, before it left its community.
And it was encouraged. It was encouraged from within the community that the pioneers there, I believe it was a Mr. Gurley, right? That was very prominent in the area. They believed in that. They believed in banking with themselves, shopping with themselves, supporting themselves. I mean, within that small area, you had something, I believe it was like 20 churches. And they believed in keeping that money locally, keeping it within, and it became very envious. The white community became very envious of the way the black community circled the dollars.
So when you talk about all this advancement, you're talking about all this culture of spending within and developing within. There's always going to be some kind of pushback, especially if people who are outside of the community are looking at this community and saying, why do they have more than us?
And that's what happened as far as along Greenwood Avenue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That really happened in Black Wall Street. That you had a white community that was very envious, and they saw that the blacks were they were enjoying nightlife. They were enjoying fabulous homes. They were living very prosperous, and it became very envious to them. And the pushback was basically that. The thing about the destruction of Black Wall Street in Greenwood Avenue is it was assisted by the government. Okay, that's a key that's the key to this. And the key to it is this basically is that there was rumors spreading that really started within Greenwood Avenue, and that spurred the white resentment is that there was an elevator operator who was a white woman. I believe she was about 21 years old, and there was an 18-year-old African American that had entered into the elevator. There's various stories going on that he supposedly assaulted her. There is stories going on also that says that he might have just tripped when he entered into the elevator. The key component of this is though, the white woman never pressed charges on him at all. Never basically accused him or anything. Never signed any type of complaint. So it seems that this might have been a conspiracy. The conspiracy was that we got to remember now we're still living in an era where a black man, even the looking at a white woman was considered a crime. Okay, so basically what happened is this started a push from the white community that was very upset that this had happened. Now, as I did some research, it seems though is that this was used as a ploy. This was used as a way of them trying to lynch this man. Okay. 2, it was also used as a way of, shortly about a year before that, they had about 3,300 registered Ku Klux Klanmen in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So now the key was this. The key is that they started rioting in the black community. It went on for about a week. It destroyed millions of dollars worth of property. Okay, it lost 300 lives. It made 10,000 people homeless. And this was assisted by the government actually bombing the African American community into ruins, into oblivion. And this resulted in basically the worst terrorist attack on American soil at that time, hatched by the government. And this was basically erased from the history books. It was never told, it was never written about. But you had people like I mentioned, Mr. Gurley. He lost everything. He lost everything, and they said he went into obscurity and moved to California. But other people actually stayed. They rebuilt Black Wall Street within 5 years. It took a lot without any government assistance.
Yes, and doing more research, we come to find out that reparations were never paid.
Never paid.
You know, when it comes to Black Wall Street, and you know, it's almost tragic, but unfortunately to be expected. And we understand that we're going to have to continue to fight. Why is it so important to build something like Black Wall Street in all pockets of the African American community within the United States?
Because wealth is the key to solving all our problems. Okay, Black Wall Street proved that if you keep your money within the Black community, you're able to sponsor your own charities. You're able to sponsor your own schools. You're basically able to provide the economic capital to solve your societal ills, and that's what they were able to do.
And that is amazing. That's amazing. We wanted to thank you so much about telling us this great tale because, as you stated earlier, we don't learn too much about this history, and we understand why.
I want to leave with two things.
Yes, sir.
The amazing story about Black Wall Street was after they rebuilt, right? That they were hit hard just by the Depression, just like anyone else. But Greenwood basically became somewhat of like the jazz capital of the Midwest, right? And what basically killed Black Wall Street, even after they rebuilt, right, was the desegregation laws in the 60s and 70s. So it basically now, you have the basis to understand now, and he's an icon. Was Dr. King wrong? Were we better off being separate but equal? Because the desegregation laws in Tulsa, Oklahoma, basically allowed African Americans now to spread out into other communities, and basically that's what we witness now, that we're spending our money from outside the community. And you wonder if we had stayed separate but equal, would we be stronger as a people? And remember, Dr. King, his famous quote was, he feared that he might have been leading us into a burning house. So we see now, if you take what happened along Martin Luther King Drive back in the 60s and 70s, there was white flight. It was white flight. And there were existing African American businesses, but as you notice, the redevelopment plan is not really coming full effect now until gentrification is basically pushing that redevelopment plan to make sure that we do not have an actual African American community, that we have a gentrified economic base. And those are the things that we have to keep in mind. Newport was built for a reason. There's a reason why the light rail was placed on Martin Luther King Drive, so it would be easier for the African Americans to bring our dollars without the community. There's a reason why there's been, over the past 10 to 15 years, there's been a commitment to build housing along Martin Luther King Drive, but not commercial businesses or commercial corridor, which would give people the incentive to shop local. So those are some of the things that we have to be wary of. We understand when the Martin Luther King Hub was built, correct? That was supposed to be open up the commercial corridor. We saw how Servo and CarQuest went out of business. We saw how the Ponderosa went out of business. We saw how Blockbuster Video went out of business. We saw how the laundromat changed several times. We saw how a bank went out of business. We have to remember, Martin Luther King Drive used to have 8 banks located on it. And right now we don't have 0, but one at the hub, a satellite branch. So those are the things that we have to be wary of. This is why I'm so passionate about, let's see if we can bring the African American community together to save our wealth.
And we appreciate it. We appreciate all the knowledge that you've given us and the knowledge you continue to instill within our community. You definitely have to leave us with something, though. Give us a good word, a quote, something that's going to push us into the next episode.
It's a book that I wrote. I consider him somewhat of a mentor, and I met him one time in an elevator, okay? And it's something I live by every day, okay? It's by the first African American billionaire, Reginald Lewis. And his famous line in the book is, "Why should white guys have all the fun?" That's the quote I tell people. We should ask ourselves a community, Why should white guys have all the fun? Why should Gates, Buffett, Jobs and different people, why can't we foster ourselves as a community to make sure that there's a set of African American young entrepreneurs, male, woman, that can lead us through this next century. So that's my quote. Why should white guys have all the fun?
Great quote. And more importantly, a better question, and one that we'll all have to actually answer for ourselves. Thank you so much, Bruce. We appreciate it. And
Thanks
thank you for watching another episode of 28 Days of Blackness.